Have you ever wondered or paused to question the life that you're living? Is it really yours? Or are you living in a world of normal where it feels like you're kind of hiding behind a mask? No judgment in any of those things. Oftentimes, many of us might feel that we're living in a reality that we didn't really create, but one that we somehow fell into. Last week, we talked about the normal trap, and the truth is, many of us catch ourselves in that space of falling into the pitfalls of normalcy without even realizing it. It's a trap where the definitions of love, safety, and expression are distorted beyond recognition. Hi, Claudia. You see, it's easy to believe that we're living the life that's meant to be ours, but the truth is, for many of us, we find ourselves living life on autopilot. Because what if it's not? What if the life that you're living actually isn't meant to be the one that you're living? What if this idea of normal that many of us have been fallen into and gotten trapped with, what if it's not real? What if it is just this carefully constructed illusion that keeps many of us caged, limited, disconnected from really feeling our true selves? You see, there's so many things that many of us have grown up normal with. For example, one of my clients grew up with this idea of normalcy being walking on eggshells, of holding her breath, of always having to kind of sacrifice her own emotional needs because of her narcissistic parents. Drop a yes in the chat if you resonate with that. Of the normalcy of growing up, of walking on eggshells. I know I definitely do. For some of my other clients, the idea of what's normal is just living life on autopilot, waking up at 6 a.m., doing the grind and the hustle, and then coming home from work, watching their TV shows and going back to bed and doing it all over again. For some of my clients, normalcy is having alcohol. Having lots of alcohol, because the idea of talking about our feelings or talking about our emotions, it was a sign of weakness growing up. It was dangerous. It was vulnerable. It was gross. So as a result, their parents didn't talk about their emotions. They would hide behind work and alcohol. And as a result, that's why many of us find ourselves in the same normal traps of our parents. No judgment if you are resonating with any of this. You see, take a moment and really reflect. What's normal in your life? Hey Fidel, hey Mo, hey Liz. What's normal in your life? Is normal waking up at a certain time? Is normal living life on autopilot? What is your normalcy? Because oftentimes we don't really go into that space of reflection. And then what happens? We live our life on autopilot. We climb the success mountain and realize that, oh my goodness, holy shiitake, this wasn't even our mountain to be on. I've asked this question of normalcy because this month I've really been taking a bold stand against it. And I asked some random strangers at the bar and some people at the store and some people on my story on social media, and I asked, what would you say are some normal things? And it's so interesting because the things that they said would be normal for women were things like women love shopping, women love makeup, women love like hanging out with girlfriends, wine, and men love like sports and barbecue. And again, it was also really funny how some of these ideas of normalcy also became just kind of assumptions around gender. Again, this isn't going to be something I want to dive into today because my goal here is to teach you how to embrace your new normal so you can live with emotional freedom. But the big part of that is you got to have an idea of what the fudge is your normal. And again, without judgment. And if you're like, I don't understand how to define what's normal for me, ask yourself, where do I go on autopilot? Or what are some patterns that I've maybe picked up from my parents that I don't really want to admit to? You see, I'm Caminos, everybody, by the way, embodiment and somatic practitioner, and I'm so excited and honored to be here with you, Carol, and to be talking about normal and really your new normal and how to embrace emotional freedom. But let me tell you the truth, it was not always like this. I struggled with this idea of normalcy because deep down, we all just want to be understood. There's a feeling of safety and belonging, connection when we're normal. If we're not standing out, if we're not being weird, dramatic, or crazy, then we're going to be part of the group. And deep down, that's what many of us want, especially as we're navigating our childhood and early developmental years. You see, what was normal in my family was anger. Anger was the only emotion that was allowed. And drop a yes in the chat if you can resonate with that. Yeah, I see you, Lady TJ. And it was in that space of growing up normal, of allowing anger to be expressed. Anger was the one emotion that was allowed. So as a result, It led to me feeling extremely insecure. It led to me having a really loud, angry inner critic. It led to me constantly comparing myself. And it led into me living a reactive life. You see, I'm so happy to be here with you today in a home that I recently purchased as a homeowner, to be in the space of love and gratitude in a healthy and safe relationship, one that I never thought would be possible, and to be here supporting you all and hundreds of women internationally, including UN ambassadors. But like I said, it wasn't always like this. It was struggling with this idea of normalcy and what that looked like for me. It led to depression, a loud inner critic, and deep feelings of not enough. How did this show up in my life? Extremely unhealthy relationships, addicted to overachieving, perfectionist to say the least. And it was in 2016 where I found myself in the most unhealthy, abusive, toxic relationship I had ever been in. And I'd hit this point, you see, where I kept trying to find my own normal. I kept trying to find my own normal, and it just felt like it was always met with judgment, with shame, with ridicule. And again, that inner critic shouting stories of not enough, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, a distorted self-image. Oh my gosh, inner critic is a rough guy. Yeah, Diego, thank you. And so it was in that space of having this loud inner critic in this unhealthy, abusive relationship where one day, I was lying on the theater floor that I was running, covered in stale beer, shame, guilt, and popcorn. And I just remember having the door open, and this beautiful breeze came and hit my face. It was a beautiful August, and the temperature was just starting to kind of change and get a little cooler. And in feeling that wind gust on my face, it felt as if it woke something up inside me. I heard a voice for the very first time in a long time saying, "Get up, you've got this." You see, for so much of my life, I think I had been trying to fit myself into the box of normalcy, that it led to me abandoning parts of myself, dismembering my authentic expression, my values, my ideas, my creativity, my love for random things like little puppets. And it was in that space where I felt I could be in a crowd of people but still be alone. I felt like I could be working 40, 60, 80 hours a week, getting all the money, and still be feeling unhappy with my version of life. And on that theater floor, hearing the voice say, "Get up," I realized I had a choice. And for the very first time in a really long time, I really felt and believed that. And so day by day, week by week, I got up. I learned how to pull myself up off that dirty theater floor, and I really had to lean into radical self-expression. I hired a mentor to help guide me because I was really freaking nervous of doing the inner work, because again, it wasn't normal. It wasn't normal for me to work on myself. It wasn't normal for me to talk about depression, anxiety, borderline personality disorder. So I had to learn all of these new templates, all of these new realities. Because even though the upbringings that we had and the normal trap that many of us have fallen into, it's not our fault. But in our sovereignty and our choice and our empowerment, we get to decide what we want to do in our future. So how can we really start to embrace the new normal so that you, day by day, week by week, can really start to live a life of true emotional freedom and sovereignty? How can we really break away from the normal trap so you can create a new sense of normal where you are allowed to feel the emotional freedom and live life with more mental clarity, more purpose, more energy, more safety, and a deep level of inner trust? I mean, take a moment. How different would your life look in that space? So what I want to invite you to think about is, how can you tell? How can you tell? How can I tell when I'm caught in a normal trap versus when I'm actually in my new normal? There are 3 areas that I'm going to touch on. And again, I dive a lot more into this with my clients, but I want to talk about the 3 that tend to rise up the most for them. So you're going to see me look at my notes, so don't, just know. So one of the areas that this comes up a lot for with my clients is in the space of love. And so how can we really start to really fall into and become aware of when we're in the normal trap of love versus how we're really starting to create our new normal for emotional freedom? Love is a huge thing because love is something that many of us just end up kind of digesting and taking in from society. You know, our version of love here in the U.S. is going to be very different than our love, in Czech Republic. And that's going to be very different from our love in El Salvador. And so how can you really start to think about the love template that you're in? Look at the people in your life who really influenced you. Maybe it's your parents, your grandparents, teachers, media, no judgment. But really start to say, okay, what are some of the templates that I've taken in? What are some of the, the little metaphors and things like that? I know for myself and for many of my clients, one thing that we really took in was this idea that, in order for a woman to be lovable, she can't be wild, she can't be crazy, she can't be dramatic, she can't be too sensitive. She's got to be the boy's girl. Take a breath into that if that resonates. And so in this love space of normalcy, just ask yourself, do you feel like you have to earn love? Do you feel like you have to earn love by being good enough? Do you feel like you have to shape or distort yourself to fit into a certain box to be with the person that you're with? Do you feel safe in being yourself? I know that's kind of a loaded question, so baby girl got deep for a moment. But that's the thing when we're talking about love and when we're talking about normalcy. Again, I'm going to be talking about love, normalcy in the space of love, safety, and expression. But it can be really tender when we're in the space of love because, again, we as people just want to be loved and accepted by others. And we tend to hide behind sports, behind gifts, behind all of these different things because it's what many of us grew up with. And again, it's not your fault. You can have this idea for safe love and the relationships that you desire. But until you can really start to craft what normal, safe love looks like for you, you're probably going to find yourself repeating patterns. If you've ever found yourself dating the same person over and over again, you might be caught in a normal trap. If you found yourself being in a relationship but still feeling deep levels of isolation and alone, you might be in a normal trap. And again, no judgment in that, but really take the space to say, what do I want love to look like? What is safe love for me? What are some of the traps of normalcy that I have fallen into or bought into? Take a breath into that. And so the other thing that tends to come up for my clients is this feelings of safety, and so oftentimes we live in a world of normalcy where we fall into the normal trap of safety. Safety is this, and this. Safety is, no one raising their voice. Safety is talking, but safety is a seatbelt. But what is actual safety to you? So many of us crave it. So many of us don't feel safe in our mind, safe in a relationship, safe in being vulnerable and sharing our heart with people around the world. But we want to have those deep desires of connection, but there's something that stops us. Probably the normal trap and the fear of rejection, abandonment that comes with it. But as you're starting to create your new normal, the big thing that you can do is define it. Define. Can you define safety? Can you define love? Because if you're playing it safe in life and you're avoiding risks and you're hiding and distorting yourself and wearing a certain mask around people or hiding behind work or alcohol or relationships or love or drugs or no judgment, but how can you really start to create a new sense of safety so that way you can really lean into your authentic expression? Because the fear of judgment or rejection is going to continue to loom over you until you really are able to take off that mask, even if it's just for yourself. And how do you do that? Again, define safety. How can you define safety so that you can be a safe space, at least for yourself in the beginning? Plot twist, if you can't be a safe space for yourself, it's going to be really hard for you to find that outside. No judgment in that, but no one teaches us how to do it. No one teaches us how to create safe spaces internally or how to process it or express our emotions. So next thing you know, we're just kind of demanding it everywhere around the world without really understanding what it means. Because again, Mia's definition of safety is going to be very different from Jackie's, who's going to be very different from Shelly's, who's going to be very different from mine. Also, hello, ladies. The final thing that I want to talk about in the space of normalcy that my clients tend to fall into, again, how can we separate ourselves from the old normal traps of love, of safety, and expression and start to create our own, define it. And so how can you really start to just reflect on your own sense of expression is just asking yourself, do you find yourself suppressing your true emotions? Are you afraid of being too much? Are you worried that showing your real feelings will push people away, leading you to bottle up your pain, joy, swallow your words, and everything in between? No judgment. These are just meant to be really reflective questions to get you into a space of the reality of what your normal looks like. Might be a little uncomfortable, but if it is, go ahead and move the body, smack your butt, get some blood flowing, and just take a breath. Sometimes these questions might feel like they can be really uncomfortable, really hard. And so thank you for everyone who stayed on with me now and also in the future watching the replay. But you deserve normal. the normal that is uniquely yours, your new normal. And the only way for you to really get into that space is to really open up to the reflective questions. And again, the big thing I want to share with you is define it. Once you're able to really define and move these subconscious ideas of what is normal, what is love, what is safety, what is expression, who am I, existential questions. But again, when we can take the existentialism out and just bring in a sense of play and simplicity to definitions, watch how that changes. Watch how even just becoming aware of how you define normal really starts to bring in a deeper level of awareness. And so just know that everything that you're feeling around normalcy, around the old normal that you have fallen into, the old normal of your parents, the old normal of your grandparents, of society, of the generations who have paved their way before us, just know that it's not your fault. And just know that whatever it is that you're feeling, it's normal. I promise, even if the other world is telling you otherwise. You see, these are not isolated feelings. These are the hallmarks of a life where you're living in a distorted version of normal. If you're feeling stuck, trapped, confused, isolated, again, know that it is not your fault. Oftentimes, these are feelings that we are in a distorted version or reality of normal, that we're in a space and a mold that really wasn't meant for us to be in. Because, plot twist, one size does not fit all, and you are not meant to live in a box. Many of us have spent years of our life, even decades, living in this reality and just really thinking about how life is supposed to be, fantasizing about our reality, the normal that we crave, the emotional freedom that we deserve. Yet again, we mold ourselves to fit into the shape that others have laid before us. We end up getting caught under the weight of stacking expectations, and society teaches us that that's normal. It's the way to belong. It's the way to be loved. It's the way to be safe. But is it? Let's face it, the old way of normal is a trap. It's a distorted reality. It's a distorted lens that we look through our lives with. And it is convincing us that our worth is tied to how well we perform, how well we can put ourselves into boxes, and how well we can compare to other people. And for the empath, the sensitive soul, the recovering perfectionist, this version of normal, it can feel heavy. It can lead to a lot of feelings, and just know that you're not alone in that. And I also just want to remind you that you have the power to create a new normal. You have the power to create a new normal. And the best way that you can do that, outside of just opening up to awareness and leaning into the reflective questions, is to go into a space of definition. How can you define these things so that way you're not caught in the distorted lens of normal that society has placed in front of us? That you can take a step back, wipe the mirror of your heart, and look it through the lens of your unique expression. What would your life look like if you stopped people pleasing? What would your life look like if you did that one thing that you really enjoy doing? Like playing with puppets, painting, pretending to be a bird, whatever it is, no judgment. Be weird, be quirky, be yourself. Because if you could say no without guilt to yourself, if you could rest without feeling lazy, if you could pursue your passions without the need for external validation or the fear of being judged or ridiculed, what if that was the new normal that was waiting for you? Because it's a life where your emotional freedom is priority. And it's not something that's just prioritized or accepted. It's something that's celebrated. You deserve this, I promise. If you're looking for more resources around this, just know that I've got your back. And you can go ahead and drop yes in the comments, and I'll reach out to you with a little normal checklist so that way you can really just kind of start to go through your life and take inventory. What are some of the more common normal traps that we fall into? Because that checklist alone is really going to support you in getting a better idea of how far we are in this normal trap, and easy, gentle ways, playful ways for you to start stepping out of that, because it's time. It's your time. And so wherever you are in your journey, know that you are not alone. Know that I'm here, I've got your back, and I'm rooting you on every step of the way. Everybody like this video and let me know what's a big takeaway that you're getting from this. I'm Des Caminos, Embodiment Somatic Practitioner, and follow for more resources around disruptions and in really being able to create a life of clarity